Any words of wisdom?
Always check the fuel type of whatever you're operating before you put it in.
I'm not gonna point it out.
No?
No, I'm not gonna point it out. I'm just gonna ask. So judging, just looking, I'll even block this part, right? So if you were to go put fuel in this and you couldn't see the engine at all, what fuel would you put in it? Comment down below if you can see where it says that. Welcome everyone. A little bit of a conundrum here. This is a bad boy diesel. Has a little Caterpillar diesel, 35 horse, and I won't name names, but somebody accidentally put gas in the tanks. So I need to drain the tanks, and I also need to drain the fuel system because it was ran for about 10 minutes. Fortunately, it had so much gas in it that the engine can't run off of it. A diesel actually will not run off of gasoline. It will run off of gasoline if it's mixed heavily with diesel, but not pure gasoline. So a good thing in this case, fortunately. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. We're going to, just like I just talked about actually, we're gonna take the fuel system, we're going to drain it. So not only am I gonna drain the fuel tanks, but I also need to drain the injection pump, and I need to drain or crack these injector lines so that we can get all of that all that gas out of the system. So the problem with putting gas in a diesel, not only does a diesel not run on gasoline, but the bigger problem is that diesel is a lubricant as well. So yes, it's a fuel, but it's also a lubricant in its fuel system. And gasoline is not. Gasoline's a solvent. It does the exact opposite of what diesel does. Now they are both petroleum based, so if you put them in a fuel tank together, for instance, they will mix. They will not separate, you know, like water and oil, for instance, or water and diesel fuel will separate. If you let it set, the water will set at the bottom and the diesel will stay at the top. Doesn't happen with gas and diesel. Think of it like two-stroke mix, right? If you mix two-stroke oil with gasoline, because they're both petroleum products, they mix in very well and they don't separate. So without further ado, we need to drain this completely and get as much of this diesel or the gasoline out of this diesel system as possible. All right, so you probably can't tell from the smell of my hands, but it's evident to me that there is a predominant amount of gas in here compared to diesel. The person that told me that they did this, they told me that there was very little diesel in the tank. So like when they opened the lid, for instance, they could barely see any diesel in the bottom. Now, hopefully they're talking about right here, because you can see that when I look straight down, right, see how that's not a very deep part of the tank. So there's a lot of diesel still in there at that point. Now, they also mentioned that the fuel gauge was showing that it was empty. So I'm still guessing that there was very, very little diesel in there. This specific model holds 12 gallons of diesel if you fill both tanks all the way up. They are saddle tanks, so it's weights evenly distributed between the two sides. Anyways, they said that they put 5 gallons of gasoline in there. They ran the mower for about 10 minutes, and after they ran it for 10 minutes, then it started to run really bad, and then it just died. Good thing and bad thing. Good thing meaning that, again, a diesel will not run on gasoline. So it's actually better to have pure gasoline in there and it just die, or very high mixture of gasoline, so that it would die, opposed to it running with a very high gasoline content mixed in with the diesel, where it can still run, but the gasoline has those properties like I talked about before, where they're a solvent, not a lubricant. So I'd rather it be like that. So we're draining this out. These tanks are actually gravity fed down to this specific fuel water separator. After here, then it goes to a mechanical fuel pump, pushes it through the fuel filter right here, and then into the injection pump, and then out to the injectors. We've cracked all the injector lines, meaning that they are completely separated, right? So I can pick this up and you can see the bottom of it, right? We're gonna leave it like that because we're gonna crank the engine over several times until we get all the fuel that's in this injection pump out. And then we've already drained, I forgot to record it. So I took this off, drained it. I put the filter back in. I do need to change the filter. However, I don't have the right one on hand. So for now, we're gonna get that out, get all that fuel pushed through, and then we'll put a new filter in. Drained the fuel water separator. It's drained. The pump is drained. Basically how I did that was I took the line off right here that comes into the injection pump, and on this end I literally blew air through it. So took the air compressor with a nozzle on the end of it, that nozzle right there, as a matter of fact. So took that, blew the air straight through it, pushed all the fuel out. Then after that, we took the filter off to drain, or to get as much fuel of that out as we could. It's drained, and I mean, obviously it's still gonna have gasoline in it, but I filled it with diesel, so that should help. And then, last but not least, we will hook all these lines back up. But right now, everything is still draining. You can see I hooked the other line up directly to the bottom of the tank because it'll drain faster than trying to go through all this plumbing. So let's get back to that. So as long as the fuel level, or the fuel lines, are downhill, I don't know if you can hear that. Now it just picked up quite a bit. So it's draining a lot faster now. When there's a lot of fuel in the tank, it'll push it through because gravity is pushing it down. But again, that's the important thing, getting all the fuel out, all that, whether it had gas and diesel or just gas either, it needs to be gone. Gas is not good for a diesel. So, and as far as what you should replace, you probably should replace the injection pump. You probably should replace the injectors. You should honestly replace all the fuel line, the fuel filter, even probably the housing right here for the fuel water separator. Unless it's a hard line, like these lines here wouldn't need to be replaced, but all these rubber lines should be replaced. Like I said, so gasoline is just so much different, has such a different properties to it than what diesel does. It's a solvent. It will eat stuff that diesel won't. So like some rubber fittings, some O-rings, it will eat. In the injection pump, what I'd be worried about is if it ran for a long period of time with gas in there, then it'll have a lot of metal shavings in it, or it could have a lot of metal shavings in it. Those metal shavings eventually will come out of that injection pump and into your injectors, again, killing them. And if you have it to where, let's say some shavings come out of there and they stick your injector open, on a common rail, it would be a problem because it could burn a hole in your piston. On this being, it's not a common rail system, so it fires each individual injector off of a cam lobe that's inside of your injection pump, whereas a common rail, it fires the individual injector by an electronic pulse. Well, if there's something that's keeping the injector stuck open, it wouldn't matter if the electric pulse is there or not. It would allow that fuel to come out regardless, and that can easily burn a hole in a piston. So on that, I don't have to worry about it on here, but it'll make it to where the vehicle's not running well. So don't want that to happen either. Yeah, it's a mess. There's just no good answer to it. I'm not sure what happened to the audio for this clip, but all I'm showing is we filled everything back up with diesel and we primed the whole system. So we loosened the very top fuel line that is the one leads from the fuel filter into the injection pump, left that off, and we pushed diesel fuel all the way through up to that point, then connected it back up, gave it a few more pumps, and at this point we're ready to start it. That's all done. Now what we're going to do is my wife is going to crank the engine over and we're going to get all that fuel. Oh, actually, hang on. Let me pump it a couple more times. There's a primer pump up here. It's starting to get hard. There we go. It'll start with that one.
Will it?
It's nothing to do with it. All right, so now Chrissy's going to go ahead and crank the engine. Good. Put the parking brake on. And then, oh, actually, shut the tanks.
I can't pull these up.
All these newfangled safety features. All right, now it should crank.
You got something
The peaches are
disconnected?
done.
Might have to.
Like no lights or anything pop on.
Peaches are done.
When I turn it, no lights come on. Usually lights for like oil and stuff come on.
Turn it off. Because you left the lights on.
Huh? I didn't.
Turn that off.
That's all?
Yeah, turn them on. And turn them back off. Alright, so she's gonna crank it over.
Ready?
Now that we got the battery charger on there. Cause
Set.
what's one more thing dead, right?
It's not dead. We hope.
Alright, go ahead and crank it. Alright, stop. Let's go ahead and tighten these back up, see if it'll fire. Alright, definitely got fuel coming through now. I know some of it's probably going to be gas, but we've got a lot out of there, and honestly, we're not going to kill a starter. We're going to see if it'll fire, and then if it fires, maybe we can get a little bit of fuel or a little bit of gas is left in there out. So we're going to tighten these back down, see how it runs or if it runs, and then we'll go from there.
What's the if? This sounds very discouraging. When it runs, it will run.
I like your optimism. How come I don't get that kind of optimism with this car?
Because it's been sitting there for a year.
Well, Rona's really put a delay on parts, I will say that. Still waiting for a radiator, by the way. They've been recording. They're running. Well, you said it. I wasn't naming names. Huh? What? No, I bet it didn't do that on gas. Do you think it makes more horsepower if you use gasoline? Like premium fuel? Good answer. Alright, so on a brighter note, this one is running. Like we talked about before though, just because it's running doesn't mean that it won't have a problem later. It is possible to do damage to an injection pump or injector. Right now it honestly doesn't sound like it, but again, we will see. And we might get lucky. It may not have been in it. Didn't have a whole lot of gas in there, so, or didn't have a lot of diesel. Apparently there's 5 gallons, so it was a 50-50 mix. Turn it off. So when we drained all the fuel out, actually, so it filled up that 5-gallon gas can, like to the tippy top. This 5-gallon gas can to the tippy top, I had to pour some into here, plus it filled a little bit of that up. So you put 5 gallons of gas was put in, but apparently there's about 5 gallons of diesel in there as well. So it was a 50-50 mixture. And will a diesel run on 50-50 gas and diesel mix? No. So, do you recommend it?
No.
Alright, so that's gonna end the video. So it is possible to fix them. Make sure everything that you obviously loosen up, make sure you tighten it back down, put all your clamps and stuff back on too. Otherwise you might have an issue later. Alright everyone, I really do hope this helped and learn, well, I know you learned something.
We'll see.
It's not what I want to hear. Round 2 may not be so lucky. It may not fire up again. Anyways, I really do hope it was helpful because it happens and it's easy to, not easy. It's inconvenient and it's time consuming to fix it, but it is relatively simple to fix it. A lot harder on a vehicle because like if it was on my truck, it'd be much harder because those lines are a lot harder to get off and to be able to drain the fuel out of. What are you doing over there? A lot harder to drain the fuel out of and stuff. So thankfully it was something like this, and thank God it was not my tractor.
I know the tractors are diesel. I know the truck is a diesel. It was an honest to God mistake.
I'm not saying it wasn't a mistake. I'm just saying that everything on this farm that is orange runs on diesel. Don't touch that.
Orange.
No. That's 70% or more orange.
You gotta be very specific.
Oh, Chrissy!
Speaking of, if you want
Doesn't get any more specific.
I didn't read it.
Obviously, college kid.
This is what I did.
You did just like you do in college and you skimmed the notes.
I came over here. This was down. I sat down. I pulled it out of the garage. Then I looked over to see how much fuel I had in there. And it
like
really
that, right?
didn't look like there was fuel in
It
there.
doesn't look like there is.
And when
I'll
I
give you
opened
that.
these up, you couldn't see hardly any fuel.
And with 2.5 gallons of fuel in there, no, you're right. You
Yeah.
cannot see it.
So I went and got fuel.
Well, 2.5 gallons on each
And
side.
I came back and I put the fuel in. It happened to be gas. And then I mowed a little bit.
So what you're saying is it gets terrible gas mileage.
It's awful. And then after 10 minutes, it makes some bad noises. And I wasn't out of gas. That's it. And then I called Travis.
You're right. You were not out of gas. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Hope you have a blessed week. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to our channel. We do a lot of farming videos. No.
It's fine.
I don't want this to be an unfair trial.
I-
I wasn't naming names. You said you.
It's gonna be unfair. I was just getting home from working 8-hour days.
I'm not
and
saying
I got here
this-
and I was ready to cut grass. I didn't look at anything on this.
So you didn't check the oil either?
No, I didn't. Because you know why? No. I have
That's
a good
right,
reason.
too.
I have a good reason I didn't check the oil. You had just said 5 days previously that everything was ready to go. Oil looked good and it's good to go. Except there was no fuel in it. Or at least it didn't
There's
appear.
5 gallons in
Well, on the gas thing it looks
You're right. And actually, we just put 5 gallons of fuel in here.
looks
So
like there was not much in
if you have a bad boy mower, apparently when you have 2.5 gallons of fuel on each saddle tank, it'll still show you that it's empty. So we're gonna pull this out and we'll fill it up with the truck because I'm not gonna keep carrying cans of fuel in here. But either way, moral of the story being, don't put diesel, or don't put
Just
gas in a
check
diesel.
the vehicle or whatever it is
Hey,
you're operating
Quick question:
before you put stuff in it.
if you went up to something and you didn't know what kind of fuel it took, what could
See,
you?
but I was okay. So
Hey,
I was
just
pretty
answer the
certain
question.
It was gas because the one we had right before this was gas, and you told me in the middle of a dinner conversation. And I'm gonna admit, I had a margarita and we were with friends. I did not remember him saying it was a diesel,
I'm not saying that. I'm just seeing if you listen.
and it was a year ago.
I'm just asking. It wasn't a year ago. It was 6 months ago. It was September.
Well, it seemed like a year ago. A lot has happened since then.
I know. We've got a shop building going up out here. Anyway, I just want to see if you retained some information.
There's a lot going on in this head right now.
I know you're a college student. I don't want to hear excuses. I'm just asking if you walked up to a vehicle and you weren't sure of the fuel type, right? You walked up. You're not sure what kind of fuel it takes. What could you look at? Not even
I feel
labels.
like you're attacking me.
I'm not attacking. I'm honestly, I'm hoping that you can pass some information on to somebody else. I'm sure that I'm not the only husband that has this issue.
No,
Matter of
apparently
fact-
you're not. We know. We're not gonna name names. But
Oh, I'm
we know
naming-
someone. Don't name them. That's not
Oh, come
nice.
on.
It's public. We're not gonna name it.
Either way.
Apparently, I have a friend that did the same thing. On a truck, though.
Yeah, on a common rail diesel, that's a lot.
Except for when I
Lot
confided in
worse.
her, she failed to leave that out. What's up with that? Hmm?
Yeah. Mom.
Shut up.
Anyways, so if you were to walk up to it, right, and all you see was the engine, right, and I'll look at this side, and I look at the other side, what could I look for that would tell me, hey, this runs on gas or this runs on diesel? Again, I'm not looking for English words. I'm asking, what did I say earlier that a diesel has, or a diesel does not have, that a gas engine would?
Spark plugs.
See? So if you walk up to it and there's no spark plug wires, you'd be like, I know this takes diesel.
It's dinner time.
Or
Have a good night. It's dinner.
or
Bye.
or it runs on electricity.
This show is over.